Influential and empowering woman, encouraging others to stand up to unnecessary violence against minority groups in 20th century America. She led what is now known as the Anti-Lynching Crusade.
The role she played as an activist earned her the name Mother of the Civil Rights Movement. Her name is Mighty Ida B. Wells.
Wells was born into slavery on July 16, 1862, but was freed after 6 short months. She grew up in Holly Springs, Mississippi, with 7 other siblings and a set of hard-working parents. At age 16, Wells' parents passed away from yellow fever, leaving her to support her 7 other siblings.
This was a major time in her life because she had to take on the responsibilities of being a leader at a young age. Wells made the decision to drop out of college to support her family. She then became a teacher after convincing her boss that she was 18 years of age.
She taught African American children in an old rundown schoolhouse. At age 22, she was fired for complaining about the poor job conditions. She began to focus on journalism.
Soon after being fired from her teaching job, she reached a major turning point in her life. She purchased a first-class ticket and hopped onto the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad train car. Seeing her sit in her first-class seat, the conductor asked Wells to move to the back of the car, then known as the Jim Crow car, where many people smoked and seating was not preferable. Wells revolted and fastened her feet to the front of the seat, saying that she had purchased a nicer seat and wouldn't stand for this unfair treatment just because of her skin color. It took 3 other men and the conductor to finally get her out of her seat. She then stormed off the train.
After living in disbelief for a few days, Wells filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit was against the railroad company. Wells won the lawsuit but never received the $500 that was promised. The Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad lawyer then tried to bribe her out of the case, threatening to appeal the case to the Supreme Court. Wells did not back down, and the case went all the way up to Tennessee's highest court. The court ruled in the railroad's favor. They ruled that Wells intended to harm the railroad.
After working for multiple newspaper companies, Wells was invited to work at a newspaper company by the name of the Free Speech and Headlight. There, at her new job, Wells worked with writers to publish The Negroes of Memphis. Terrified of being harmed due to the paper, she used the false name Iola and wrote in a column called the Iola column. The head of the Free Speech was intimidated by her aggressive writing style and the way she condemned inequality happening around her.
In March of 1892, Thomas Moss, a friend of Wells, got into a gunfight with 2 white deputies. Moss did not know that they were deputies. Many were injured and 100 African Americans were arrested, along with Moss and 2 of his friends. A few days later, they were taken out of their cells and shot to death.
Because of this, Wells told African Americans to boycott working with whites and move from Memphis. Most African Americans left, crossing the Mississippi River or going out toward California. African Americans who stayed in Memphis refused to work for white people and boycotted white businesses. This is just one of the instances where Wells used her persuasive writing style to take her stand.
In return, white newspapers criticized Wells, calling her a black scoundrel, while others made threats on her life. Because of this, Wells always kept a gun under her desk at the newspaper station. She was risking her life for the lives of others.
Wells' boss decided to retire after an article on Memphis schools got into the public eye. This meant that Wells and J.L. Fleming had to run the paper alone. Since Wells had a press pass, she was allowed to ride trains without pay. So she hopped on a train and traveled to places like Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. When Wells would reach her destination, she would find African Americans to sell newspapers to. Often, they would be gathered in halls or churches.
For black lawyers in Greenville, Mississippi, all lawyers signed up for subscriptions for the Free Speech. A little while later, Wells spoke to many African American Masons in Water Valley, Mississippi. Sources say she made so much money that she could not carry it all and had to go straight to the bank. magazines began to be sold all along the railroads and became popular in many towns. Sometimes Wells received information from other people, or stringers. One time, African Americans ran a very successful grocery store in Memphis, which competed for profit over white grocery stores. One day, a mob of angry whites stormed into the grocery store. An African American employee shot one of the people in the mob as self-defense. All three owners of the store were put in county jail. The next night, the white mob brutally lynched three store owners. Wells was outraged.
Wells then brought her campaign to the White House by leading an anti-lynching protest in Washington, D.C. She also worked with W.E.B. Du Bois in the Niagara Movement. This movement helped African Americans who wanted change in the Niagara Falls area. Wells also co-founded an organization called the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. She was often put down by her male comrades because she was female.
In 1917, the United States entered World War I. In August of that year, dozens of African American soldiers were accused of murdering 16 white citizens. What really happened after that is not clear. After the soldiers were found guilty, as many as 13 soldiers were hung. Wells called this legal lynching. Wells argued that if the soldiers had been white, that there would be a less harsh punishment. Since the soldiers did not have a memorial service, Wells began making hundreds of buttons. As soon as she did, the U.S. Secret Service threatened to arrest her for treason. She explained that she was not giving aid to the enemy.
Wells changed our country despite the opposition she faced. However, we still do face problems and hear the echoes of brutality from the past in our present. We must learn to live like Wells and not only speak our opinion, but live it in everything we do to make our nation and world a better place that is equal to everyone.